about the show.
DIG. It's a thriller set in an archaeological dig in Jerusalem, and it follows the character that Jason Isaacs plays, a man named Peter Connolly, who is the FBI agent in charge of investigating the death of an American in Jerusalem, and it leads him to uncover a 2,000-year-old conspiracy and a pretty major event that may happen in the future if he doesn't stop it.
And what are you hoping that fans and viewers take away from the show each week?
Well, hopefully pure, unadulterated entertainment.
Yes.
Joy. Obviously.
Yes.
I think the thing is, what really attracted me to it is I kind of get tired when people go, what genre is it? You go, it's just a thriller or it's a conspiracy. What I loved about this script and when I read it and what made it stand out above all the others was it was so multi-layered. It was a thriller, a conspiracy. It's historical. It's geographic. You know, it's got this epic scale, but at the heart of it, it has these extraordinary characters that I find incredibly compelling. And so when you're, certainly for me, telling this story and bringing this story to life, it was such a joy because I was able to show this epic scope and scale of this international show, this international production where you get to see snowy fields and landscapes in the middle of nowhere in Norway, Ontario, but don't tell anybody. And then we go all the way to Arizona, and then we come all the way to the old city of Jerusalem. And there's these very, very different worlds which I was able to really dive into and create these multi-layered, deep, nuanced scenes and characters and frames in order that when it all comes together you've got these very, very different worlds juxtaposing against each other. So hopefully you can find some interest and joy in each and every one of the worlds as you go along. So hopefully it's quite an exciting ride and visually exciting, and also character-wise I think you're going to really dig these characters. And I'm only saying that because somebody else said say you dig. I've stolen it. I've used it.
You've done it.
I've done it. I dig. I get $100.
So let's talk about some of those characters. What are the main relationships that we're going to see?
Jason Isaacs plays the FBI agent.
Peter Connolly.
Peter Connolly, and he comes from the United States, and he's left behind a situation that he's trying to get away from. He's in grief. He's lost his daughter, and that's sort of the starting point. And there's something going on in his personal life that we will learn as we go along. He is in Anne Heche.
Well, I think Peter, in a way, is the central pivot for which all the other characters are slightly revolving around, and we're introduced to three very different worlds, as I've mentioned. So we've got these characters, this little boy called Avram over in Norway, who's going to make his way back to Jerusalem at some point, and we've got this guy who's in Jerusalem dealing with grief, who's working with a colleague who's also part-time lover, but he also meets a young girl that reminds him of someone, and then we've also got a detective on the ground there that they're conflicting of whose turf is it anyway, and then we have this guy in Arizona that's running this kind of, how do we describe that world? The Arizona world.
We always call it the compound, he's got a bit of a religious sect, but it's kind of gone off the rails, and they're sort of followers of his, and he has his own agenda, and all of these stories are moving toward one another, and so when they all come together is when the show really ignites.
What kind of history are you guys breaking into? You said it's going back 2,000 years. What kind of research did you do?
We did a lot of research. We read a lot of books. Obviously, Gideon is born and raised in Jerusalem, so he brings that with him. We also have Reza Aslan is actually on our writer's staff, and he was one of our consultants, and he literally wrote the book on Jesus. So he kind of knows. He's a scholar in world religions, and he was really, really helpful. There are huge mythologies that go along with that exist in Jerusalem from the Bible, from all of the holy books, and so we've been looking into those and saying, what if those move towards one another, and what if there were people attached to those points of view that were ready to make a stand in Jerusalem, and so that's where our story starts.
How did you guys get involved with this project? Like, when did you hear about it? What made you want to work on it? What makes you excited to come to work every day and keep working on this?
Well, for me, I worked with Tim about 6 years ago on Heroes. In fact, it was my first American episodic, and he was an amazing boss, and I really loved his writing, and I really thought Heroes was an extraordinary show. And I met Gideon a couple of years back now when he wrote a previous script that he'd sent to me, or come to me by my agent, and we met, and I again thought he was this extraordinary writer, and then out of the blue, I think it was about October last year, I got sent a script from my agent, from Tim and Giddy, saying they'd written this script together, and I was like, result. And I read it, and instinctively, just knew it was something special. I mean, I'm in a very privileged position where I get to read quite a lot of scripts, and there's some very good scripts out there, but just every so often one will just jump out at you and really connect with you, and this did. And so I went and met them, I think it was in January, so I've been aboard since then. So I've been living, breathing, eating, sleeping the world of DIG. And I'm literally, I've taken a day out of the edit to come to Comic-Con, but I'm in the middle of putting together the pilot, which is very exciting. But it was just this extraordinary script and these two extraordinary, brilliant writers. And the great thing about them is they've got impeccable taste, and they hire wonderful people like Carol to come on board, and you're in good company, and it's been a fantastic collaboration. I mean, we're so collaborative as a group, and I'm sure everybody says that, but literally if something's not working, I can go to them and go, this doesn't make sense, or can we look at this? And it's been an incredibly collaborative, brilliant process that we've been able to kind of create, I think, hopefully something very special, very magical.
I worked with Tim on a show called Providence a long time ago, and we stayed in touch ever since. And then he was under contract to NBC. I was under contract to CBS. We did a bunch of other things, and then when we both got free of those obligations, he asked me to do a show with him called Touch, which I partnered with him on Touch, and we did a couple seasons of that. And while we were doing Touch, he told me he was writing this script with Gideon, and said, come along. And so I did. Anytime I get the chance to work with him, I do. I love him. He's like one of my good friends, and we have a similar way of working. And what was wonderful was to meet Gideon, and I had such respect for Gideon because of Prisoners of War and Homeland. But to meet him and to see that he and Tim are sort of like minds, because Tim's like one of the sweetest guys in the world, and this is a rough business, and a lot of times people aren't so sweet. And it was lovely to see him partner with somebody like Gideon, who has that same sensibility. And I think the two of them felt safe with each other. They built a writer's room that kept everybody safe, and we just had a blast. And then we all moved to Israel for however long, to 4 months, and so we've all kind of been together a lot, and it's worked out. Yeah.